Hello everyone, welcome to the lecture series on object-oriented programming using C++. I am Mrs. Gitanjali Mahamunkar, lecturer and research scholar at Department of Computer Engineering, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Technological University, Lonere. This is the fourth lecture in this lecture series, Data Types and Storage Classes in C++. For the previous lectures in this lecture series, please visit my channel at Learn with GSM and do subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. In this lecture, I will be covering data types, reference variables and different storage classes. The books that I have referred for these lecture series are Object-Oriented Programming with C++ by E. Balagurusamy and Object-Oriented Programming in C++ by Robert Lefort. You will need an online compiler for the implementation that I might do during the lectures, okay, and checklist for this online learning is a machine with internet connection and knowledge of C is preferred but not necessary. Now let us start with what is a data type. Data type is basically something which determines the type and operations that can be performed on data. So basically it describes what kind of value or data is it, whether it is an integer value, whether it is a character value, or say floating point, that is something with decimal values and all. So you can say it is a set or collection of values and the set of operations that operate on those values. Okay, so data type you can say is permitted data values plus operations. Now the different types of data types in C++ are user defined type, built-in types and derived types. Built-in types are the atomic data types which are not composed of other data types. The different types of built-in data types, which are the basically the fundamental or basic data types, are integer, float, double, char, which come under integer and character come under integral types, whereas float and double comes under floating types. Now except void, the basic data types may have several modifiers preceding to them to serve the needs of various situations, like signed, unsigned, long, short, which may be applied to character, integer, basic data types and all. Okay, now the data type representation is machine specific in C++. So there is a combination of these modifiers and basic data types along with their size and range for a 16-bit word machine has been covered in the next slide. So let us first understand what are these built-in data types. So these are the char, int, float, double, short int, long double. Okay, these all are the basic data types, and these here I have mentioned the size, their corresponding size in bytes, okay, that they occupy in memory, the need in memory, and these are the ranges, okay, ranges of data that can be stored in the respective data type. Okay, char occupies 1 byte of memory, integer 2, float 4. Now as again I am specifying that this is data type representation is machine specific. So here I have considered a 16-bit word machine and I am specifying the size. Okay, now there are some additional data types in ANSI C++ committee has added 2 more data types, bool and wchar _t. This is a literal. Now the boolean data type is normally it holds boolean values, okay, either true or false, where true represents 1 and false represents 0. Okay, and it is stored as an integer in the memory, so it is also considered as an integral data type. Then you have the next one as wchar _t, which holds 16-bit wide characters. Okay, and the next is actually this wchar _t. Okay, this is specifically used to, the 16-bit characters are used to represent character sets of languages that have more than 255 characters, such as Japanese. Okay, so it is important if we are writing programs for international distribution. So the character type wchar_t has been defined in ANSI C++ to hold 16-bit wide characters. Okay, it is also known as a character. It introduces a new character literal for this, which is known as wide character literal. Okay, and it uses 2 bytes of memory. Now the next is void data type, which has already been introduced in ANSI C. Okay, it is used for specifying empty parameter list to a function. So the two uses of void is, it is first to specify the return type of a function when it is not returning any value, okay, and to indicate an empty argument list to a function. Like when we write a function, okay, now what is a function? We'll see, we'll have one entire lecture on functions, but in simple words, function is something which carries out a specific task. Now there is a certain syntax for it also. You have a return type, like what kind of value does a function return. So if it doesn't return anything, then we specify it to be as void. Okay, and if we for carrying out a certain task, the function may need certain input data from the user. Now when you pass that data, that is called an set of arguments or set of parameters. So when we aren't passing any parameters, so to indicate an empty argument list to a function, we use the data type void. Okay. The next, let us move on to the next type of C++ data type, that is a user defined data type, in which we have structures, unions, class, enumeration. Okay. Now what are structures and unions? Structures are used to group together elements with dissimilar data types. Okay, means when you have something like, you know, integer, a data element which is of type integer, one element which is of type character, or say float or something like that. When you group together these elements into one single unit, then we say it is a structure. Okay, then unions are also conceptually the same as structures, but implementation wise they are significantly different. Now what is the basic difference is that size of structure is equal to the sum of sizes of individual member types. Okay, and whereas size of union is equal to the size of its largest member element. Now to explain it in a better way, let us see what is it. See, a structure is declared in this way. Okay, struct result, then you give curly braces, in that you write the body of the structure, declaration of the structure, that is here it is a structure named result is actually consisting of, or is a group of dissimilar elements, like one is marks, one is grade, one is percent. Marks is of type integer, grade is of type character, and percent is of type float. Okay, so when you combine together these into one unit called result, okay, here as we have seen earlier, integer occupies how much memory? 2 bytes of memory, grade 1, and percent, that is which is float, will occupy 4 bytes of memory. So the total memory occupied is 2 plus 1 plus 4, that is equal to 7 bytes. Okay, now this is what, like the size of the structure in this case is 7 bytes. But if it had been a union, then union, as I said, structure wise both are similar, both are same. Okay, here again see, I have just replaced the keyword struct by union. Okay, and I have declared a union, which again is a combination of 3 different dissimilar elements, int, char and float. Okay, but here the memory occupied by union would be 4 bytes, because it is the size of union is equal to the size of the largest element, that is something which occupies the largest space, and obviously it is float. Float occupies 4 bytes of space. So in this case the size of the union would be 4 bytes. Okay, so if I compare, okay, structures in union, structure versus union, then the first basic difference is actually structure is defined with struct keyword and union is defined with union keyword. And if you consider the point of manipulation of members, the first point, then all the members of a structure can be manipulated simultaneously, but members of unions can be manipulated only one at a time. Then size of, second point is size. Size of a structure object, as I said, is equal to the sum of the individual sizes of the member objects, as I had shown in the previous slide, and size of the union object, whereas size of the union object is equal to the size of the largest member object. Okay. Now structure members are allocated distinct memory location. Third point is memory allocation for members. In structure, the structure members get distinct memory locations, whereas union members share common memory space for their exclusive usage. Because see, in the previous example we saw int, char and float. Okay, now when union gets 4 bytes of memory, they share that common space. The int was marks, right? Int marks. So marks, integer variable marks will use that 4 bytes of space. Okay, out of which it will use only 2 bytes. Then char, what it was, grade, it requires only 1 byte space, and 4 byte is enough. Okay, it will use, whenever it is used, it will occupy that 1 byte of space in memory. And whereas when you use a floating point variable, again 4 bytes are there already. Okay, so this is obviously this usage has to be exclusive, okay, of memory. Then fourth point is memory efficiency. Now obviously structure are not considered as memory efficient as unions, because when the members are not required to be accessed simultaneously specifically, in that case unions are considered as memory efficient, because structure occupies larger space than union. Okay, and structures in C++ basically behave just like a class. Almost everything that can be achieved with a class can also be done with structures, but unions retain their core functionality in C++ with slight add-ons like declaration of anonymous unions and all. Okay, now next user defined data type is classes, which are also known as abstract data type. Now why is that known as abstract data type? Because as I said, it is, class is a user defined data type, so it is a data type, and it has if you have missed my previous lecture, please do watch it again, okay, in which I had covered the basic concepts of C++ object oriented programming. So in that I had told you data abstraction is one of the concept of object oriented programming. In that and because classes follow data abstraction, classes can be said to be abstract data type. Okay, now we are going to see class and object in detail. Okay, so I won't talk much about it. Then enumerated data type, it is again a user defined data type which provides a way for attaching names to numbers, okay, and thereby increasing the comprehensibility of the code. Now enum is a keyword, okay, which automatically enumerates a list of words by assigning them the value 0, 1, 2 and so on. Okay, so it provides alternative means of creating symbolic constants. Now what are symbolic constants? Again I would suggest you to refer to my previous lecture. If you haven't watched it, please do watch it. And then next, for example, say enum shape, circle, square, triangle. So here circle is something that represents 0, square is something that is represents 1 and triangle 2. Okay, now the these like shape, enum shape, when I say that shape is known as the tag name. Okay, and these tag names in C++ become new type names. Okay, so by using these tag names we can declare new variables. Like here what I have done is, using shape I have declared one variable called ellipse. Okay, now next enum color, red, blue, green. Now by default it would have been 0, 1, 2 assigned to red, blue and green respectively, but when I want some other number to be represented by these names, I can assign them in this way. And if I don't assign, suppose here if I assign blue is equal to 4 and I don't assign anything to green over here, then by default it will be incremented by 1 and assigned to green. Like red would be 0, blue would be 4 and green would be 5. Here I have assigned 9, but if I would have not assigned 9, then here green would have taken the value 5. Okay. Now C++ also permits the creation of anonymous enums, that is enums without tag names, as in this case. I haven't given any tag name. So by default off would be 0 and on would be 1 in this case also, and int switch is equal to off would mean switch has been assigned the value 0. Okay. So this is about enumerated data type, which is again a user defined data type. The next types of data types are derived data types, in which we have array, function, pointer and reference. Now arrays, functions, pointers and references are the derived data types. Arrays is a collection of similar data types, as you all know. Okay. And arrays can be arrays, as you all know, when you have collection of similar, like suppose collection of 10 integers would make up an array. Okay. And in that case, if I like how these arrays are declared and all, so in that case I would like to show you. This is int r is suppose name of the array, then here I would specify suppose 5. So here this is the way I declare an array of name r is the name of the array. This is the data type of the elements in this array r. Okay, it is an integer and it tells me that I have a collection of 5 integer elements in the array r. Okay, and this is how I declare an array. This tells me that I have declared 5 integer elements, okay, in the array r. Okay. Now next is functions. Now function is a block of statements that perform a certain well defined task, right? And it is, you can say, once a function has been written to play a particular role, it can be called upon repeatedly throughout the program. Okay. So function, you can say, is something, it is a main part of a program that can be invoked from other parts of the program as and when required. Okay. And so what happens is it reduces the code, as well as it helps in code reusability, right? So the way the syntax for declaring a function is like, you first have to give the return type of the function, okay, followed by the function name, okay, what name you have to give to that function, and then in parenthesis you give the argument list, okay, list of arguments. And when you actually give a prototype, that is you declare a function, you just have to give a semicolon. Okay. So for example, let us say I have to write a function named add, okay, which takes 2 integer variables, okay, and returns an integer value. Okay. It is like I am declaring a part of a program in which I will be adding 2 numbers, okay, and returning their sum, returning their addition. So that when I add 2 numbers, obviously the value that I would return will also be a number. So this is the return type, this is the function name, and this is the list of arguments that I will be giving this to this function. Okay. So this is this is an example of a function. Okay. Now this could be int x, int y. In this way also I can declare a function. Next is pointers. It is a variable that stores address of another variable. Okay. So basically the syntax for pointer would be, a pointer declaration consists of a base type and an asterisk and a variable name. So if I so let me show how I declare a pointer. So normally int x is how I declare a variable, right? This is a variable x of type integer. Now if I want to declare a pointer variable, it would be like int suppose star p. where this tells me that P is a pointer. This asterisk it represents this to be a pointer, an integer pointer. Integer pointer means it is a this variable, this pointer variable holds the address of an integer variable. Okay, so if I had suppose int x as a variable, and if I declare int pointer P, then P would store address of x. Okay, now this is the address of operator, okay, which tells me that P is a pointer. Okay, so P stores address of x, that is, it stores it where x is located in memory. Okay, that address will be stored in P. So if I want to talk about value of x, it would be like asterisk address of x, right? Or it would also mean pointer P. Okay, this is value at, asterisk says value at, this is address of, so it like, you can read it like value at address of x is nothing but what? Pointer P. Okay, because pointer and P is address of x, right? So this is what it says. Okay, so if I store 10 in x, then pointer P will be 10, and P will be where this 10 is stored in memory, that is address of x. Okay, I hope you are getting this. Is we are going to cover this in detail later on. Next is references. References are like they provide an alternative name or alias to a predefined variable. Okay, so it is like we had just now talked about pointer. Okay, now suppose if I had int x equal to 10. Okay, this is a integer value, x is an integer variable which stores 10. Now if I declare int ampersand y equal to x, now by this I mean y, okay, is going to be an alias. Alias means alternative name. I suppose if I say I am Gitanjali urf Geeta, by that I mean in normal, in our daily day-to-day life, we say hello hello, myself Gitanjali alias Geeta, means Geeta and Gitanjali are one and the same. So similarly here x and y are going to mean the same, because when I use in the declaration ampersand, now don't confuse with the ampersand x that I talked about in the earlier point. Okay, about pointer. Here when I use ampersand y in the declaration of this variable, and if I assign it name of some other variable, by that I mean y is a reference variable which is an alternative name for a variable x. Okay, and how is it declared? In this way: data type, then ampersand, then name of the variable, that the reference variable name, and then what variable it represents equal to the variable name. Okay, so here y is a reference variable and x is a variable. Okay, so y is the alias for or alternative name for x. So I hope these derived data types are also now clear to you all. Now let us move on to storage classes in C++. Now what is a storage class? Every like variable in a in C++, in addition to data type, it also has a storage class associated with it. Now storage class of a variable specifies the lifetime and visibility of a variable within the program. Now by lifetime I mean the longevity of a variable or duration till which a variable remains active during program execution, whereas visibility means it signifies the scope of a variable, that is in which program module the variable is accessible. Okay, now there are 4 storage classes: automatic, external, static and register. Now the automatic storage class is the default storage class of any type of variable, and its visibility is restricted to the function in which it is declared. Okay, so that is, it is local to the function in which it is declared. Its lifetime is also limited till the time its container function is executing. So its lifetime is the function block. Okay, that is, it is created as soon as its declaration statement is encountered and is destroyed as soon as the program control leaves its container function block. Okay. Now the keyword to declare a automatic storage class variable is auto, but it being a default storage class, if you don't specify the storage class for a variable, it is going to belong to automatic storage class. Okay. The next is about its initial value. It's if you don't initialize it, it will take the garbage value. Now what do I mean by garbage value? The value that is there in the memory. Okay, like when you declare a variable, what actually happens is, if you have a like when you declare a variable, say int x, then it reserves a space in memory. It is located a space in memory where you can store the value that you will assign to that variable. Now when you don't assign the value to the variable, then the value that was previously present at that location will be by default assigned to that variable. That is called the garbage value. Okay. The next is external storage class. It is also known as global variable. Okay. As the name suggests, it is declared outside of a function, but it is accessible inside the function block also. Then its visibility is spread all across the program. That means it is accessible by all the functions present in the program. Lifetime of an external variable is same as the lifetime of the program. Okay, when the program ends, this global variable life will also end. And keyword used to declare a storage class for a global variable is external. Okay, and the initial value, that is, if you don't assign any value to the variable external storage class variable, then it would be by default 0. Now static storage class. In this, a static variable has the visibility of a local variable but the lifetime of a external variable. Now as we had seen in automatic, okay, the local visibility was local, and in external we had seen that the lifetime was entire program. So static takes the visibility of automatic and lifetime of external. Okay, that means once declared in a function blocks, it does not get destroyed after the function is executed, but retains its value so that it can be used by future function calls. Okay, and the keyword used to declare a static variable is static, and the initial value by default is 0. Okay, as in case of external variable. Then about register storage class. It is similar in behavior to an automatic variable, but the difference is that it is stored in CPU registers. Okay, whereas in automatic variables they are stored in primary memory, right? And the objective of storing a variable in registers is to increase its access speed, which eventually makes the program run faster. And it may be noted that it is not an obligation for the compiler to store a register type variable in the CPU register. If no registers are vacant to accommodate the variable, then it is stored just like any other automatic variable. Here the visibility is local, lifetime is the function block as in case of automatic, and so visibility and lifetime is same as automatic, because as I said, registers are similar to automatic variables. Okay, and the keyword is to declare a register variable is register. Okay, and initial value is again garbage as in case of automatic. So what we have learned in this lecture is data types, basic data types, user defined data types, derived data types, difference between structures and unions, the user defined data types, right, and storage classes. Now I am sure you'll be able to list out the basic data types defined by ANSI C++ committee and different derived data types, okay, and compare structure and union as well as explain the various storage classes. So thanks a lot for watching my video, okay, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done yet. Like, comment and share my video as much as you can. Thank you.